We need to talk. Hey, ChatGPT, if I invested £9,981 in S&P 500 from December 30th, 2022, how much will I be earning by December 31st, 2024?
If you had invested £9,981 in the S&P 500 on December 30th, 2022, and held it until December 31st, 2024, your investment would have grown by approximately 53.19% based on the S&P 500's performance over that period. This means your investment would have increased to about £15,281. Please note that this is an estimate, and actual returns can vary due to factors like market volatility and currency exchange rates. Site Turn News 12.
Look at this scatter plot. Every single data point is black tax related transaction in the past 2 years. Each data here represents a choice, a sacrifice. These transactions reflect the silent stories of many who are supporting their loved ones back home. It is about more than money. It is about responsibility, culture, and often, very often, tough decisions. This is how much black tax has cost me in the last 2 years. This is going to be one of the most holistic videos you will ever watch on black tax. I'm going to touch on the origins of black tax, where it came from, the categories of black tax, the opportunity cost or effects of black tax on the senders, and finally, how to properly deal with black tax. If you have watched my previous video on the mistakes to avoid as a migrant in the UK, you probably know what black tax is, but I'm going to talk to you more about it. Basically, black tax is a financial obligation or responsibility placed on black individuals who have made it to provide support, economic support for their families and loved ones. Now, this is not any any actual tax placed on black individuals by any government or sanctioned by any government, but it is a common thing which has its origins rooted in a lot of factors. The concept of black tax itself has been around for generations, but the term black tax originated from post-apartheid South Africa. Now, what happened is during apartheid, black South Africans were subjected to systemic oppression with limited access to quality education, well-paying jobs, and economic opportunities. Sometimes their lands were even taken from them. The black families lived in poverty for generations. Your lands are taken away from you and you had nothing. So after apartheid, the new generation of blacks, who became the first in their families to start making wealth for themselves, felt a strong obligation and responsibility, and rightly so, to support their families and loved ones who were not fortunate enough to have good income or good paying jobs. They did that sometimes even at the expense or to the detriment of their own personal financial growth, and that limited the potentials of one outlier individual making it out of the many who are struggling. But this was, of course, linked to their deep sense of Ubuntu. They understood that we rise by lifting others, and I am because we are. Now, colonization did not just happen only in South Africa. As a matter of fact, 52 African countries, including Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, there are only 2 African countries that were not colonized. But the 52 African countries, including South Africa, that were colonized, all suffered the same fate as South Africa when it comes to the effects of colonization, like black tax. But it does not end there. That strong sense of responsibility to correct what has long been wrong has now become a cultural norm in most African countries. And that culture has created in certain people expectations that make them sometimes entitled to monies they have not worked for but planned for. And for me, I think it results in one of the most unfortunate mindsets an individual can have, to be entitled to such monies that do not belong to you. And of course, it would be unfair to blame colonization and culture alone for what causes black tax. Governments and systems also create a huge part of what causes black tax. The Western world, for instance, runs on credit. Students go to school on accessible loans. So very few parents directly pay tuition fee or provide financial support for their kids' college or university education. As a matter of fact, in the UK, kids between 16 to 19 years old go to college for free or subsidized. Unlike in Africa, where parents directly pay for the university education for their kids. Now, I'm using kids in loose terms because these are 18-year-old people or more who are still dependent on their parents for their upkeep and for their education. When technically, if they were living in the Western world, they would be living on their own, providing for themselves, probably finding some jobs to do. So, for the most part in Africa, the parents' effort in paying for the school fees and accommodation and feeding for their kids is seen as an investment. And black tax is most of the time the only way the parents can earn their dividends, because these educational fees are very expensive. Now, besides the efforts that parents make in paying school fees, university school fees for their kids who are over 18, giving them allowances, food allowances, and for accommodations and all of that, some families and parents also pay for their kids to travel outside the country, maybe for work or for school, so that when they make it, they will also be able to send money back home. So the cycle of black tax may never end, and we may only be able to manage it. Growing up, my parents used to say, "Yehwa ma usie fifi, si ebeya onso nyiniya, obehwe ma yesie tutu." And what that means is, we are making sure we are taking care of you to be stable enough and strong, so that when you are strong and stable enough, you take care of us until we are weak. Now, before I talk to you about how to properly deal with black tax, I want to first show you the categories of black tax so that you would know how to properly deal with black tax, because there are different categories of it. There are those that fall under the payback category. Now, this is not necessarily owing money. It could be owing a favor. Put yourself in your parents' shoe, for instance, who have taken care of you beyond the age of maturity, 18 years old. They're still taking care of you beyond the age where they are legally obligated to take care of you. They still did. How are you going to pay them back? And this goes beyond just parents. The uncles, the aunties, the siblings, the friends who have been there for you in kind and in deed. They supported you when you had no job or when you had literally nothing. How would you pay them back if they or their kids need your help? So this category is like a gratitude category to pay them back. But the question is, how much can pay for that gratitude and for how long? Right. The next black tax category fall under emergencies. So these are unplanned situations, events that happen back home. Or and talking about black tax, I'm not just talking about people who are outside of their countries and sending money back home. There could be people still living in the same country and they are still paying black tax. So these are unplanned events, and you are there, all of a sudden you receive a call that your mom is sick, or your brother is sick, your sister is sick. These kind of transactions fall under emergency black tax category. And then there is the ego trap, where people send money not because it is needed, but just to satisfy their sense of accomplishment and status. I think this is pride. That's how I see it. And if you do not check it well, it can lead you into a cycle of always needing external validation for your worth, and eventually to your poverty. People sometimes want to show that they have made it, so they want to send money to people because I have made it. I think it is lack of financial planning. That's how people do that. That is the next category. Then there is the guilt trap, where people feel that if they do not send money, they have probably disappointed their families. So they would go every length to try and send money back home, even if it is costing them their livelihoods. This is also not good. The next category is what I call the caregiving or responsibility category, where the sender takes upon themselves that I want this to be my responsibility to take care of my family because I can afford it. And it is not because of ego. I am not doing it because I want to satisfy any sense of accomplishment. I'm not doing it to prove any point. I'm not doing it because I'm feeling guilty. I'm not doing it because I'm paying anybody back. But out of compassion and out of the affection I have for my family, and also because I can do it. I have that responsibility upon me to correct whatever levels of lack of wealth in the family. I'm trying to do this in the small way possible that I can. And I feel like most intentions behind black tax should be like this. And I am super lucky to have benefited from this category. By the grace of God, my siblings are self-reliant and I can rely on them if needed. Even now, I made a video about how my brother used to send me money when I had no job in the UK, when he was still living in Ghana. Now, the final and the most absurd category is the entitlement category, where individuals feel entitled to your money without giving any consideration to your financial situation or your general well-being. I remember I had lost a very dear one in my life, a very useful, dear person in my life. He meant everything to me. And I will not be able to talk about him in a single video. No, I will not. And I was broken. I was grieving. So I had posted him on my status, the fond memories and all of that. And people that had my number could see that I had posted on my status how that I had lost a dear one. This guy saw my status, did not say anything, entered my DM, came to send, Charlie, send him a coin, say. I was like, are you for real? Like, am I just a bag of money to you? Like, the person did not have any compassion, did not have any sense to know that somebody is grieving, to even say my condolences, to even think that this is not the right time to request for what I need. The sense of entitlement people can have for monies that do not belong to them. But you see, in doing all of this, it's like you're trying to solve a problem you did not create. A problem which needs more than just one man to solve. But we have taken it upon ourselves to try and solve it, at least in our own small way, from our small families. And we are doing it transaction by transaction. But in doing so, we forfeit what could have been the stock market investment, the mortgage deposit, the debt repayment, the holiday and the vacations, the emergency savings. And we sometimes look back at these transactions and ask if it is worth it. With guilt sometimes, and sometimes even with more debt. So how do we manage or prevent black tax? I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. Have a plan, more like a budget. Every month, if you want to do it that way. Every quarter, if you want to do it that way. Have a plan of how much or what percentage of your salary you want to use towards black tax. Do not just make impulse sending. Do not just be sending money the moment people call you. Charlie, can you send me some coins? Then you send money. Some people can just enter your DM on Facebook. Can you send me? I understand the place of compassion. But if it is not within your plan, you have to learn to be within your plan. Another way of dealing with black tax effectively is, for some of the categories of black tax, just learn how to say no. I know it might sound very brutal, but if you entertain such transactions, they can go on to create expectations in people and then entitlement, which can become very distasteful. So learn how to say no. For instance, the ego trap. You don't need to send money to people to prove your sense of achievement or anything. And the guilt trap. Do not let people manipulate you into feeling like you have to send them something, or else you are disappointing anybody when you indeed cannot send it. So there are some categories of black tax transactions that you just have to learn to say no about. Another way to properly deal with black tax is look at it as an investment. So instead of constantly sending money to someone, it would be better to create a business for them, save the money, use it to create a passive or active source of income for them. So instead of sending it to them constantly, have a conversation with them that I need to create some business for you, because the way black tax works is it temporarily plugs a hole that would eventually reopen, and you, the same person that sent the money, would have to be the same person to plug it the next time, right? So it would be better to save the money that you are constantly sending to loved ones and use that as a business. It could be for maybe Uber or some taxi services. It could be a shop, so that you would take yourself out of that equation of constantly having to send them money. That business or that shop will now become that source of income for them, and you will now focus on building your personal wealth, because you do not want to let the cycle of black tax continue in your life. You don't want to pass it on to your kids. So you want to, as much as possible, be the last line that black tax will work in your family. So that would be another way of looking at it. While you are saving towards maybe creating a business for them to replace that constant sending of money, there may be emergency situations, so you probably have to plan for that. There'll be emergency situations where they will ask you, oh, there is this situation that has come. So plan for that as well. But if you are able to plan for this, it might take a while, but the moment you deliver the business idea, the business for them, and it solves that problem, you can now have a peace of mind to focus and build your personal wealth. Another way of properly dealing with black tax is take advantage of safety nets. So instead of sending money for emergency purposes, for health emergency, do health insurance for the people you support, right? Or encourage them that the money you are sending them, they should use some for health insurance. Okay? You can speak to them to save or to make contributions towards their pension, so that when they retire, they would be secured with their pension fund. Or families should also take advantage of life insurance policies. This is very important. The final way to properly deal with black tax is encourage financial literacy. People should learn how to save or invest, or even use the money you send to them to get a trade, to learn a trade or get certifications, so that they can use that certification or trade to make money for themselves. Families can also create group savings scheme, so that everyone in the family can contribute a quota to, maybe occasionally, right? So that you would have a buffer just in case of any emergency. You would be able to get some money, a reliable source of money, right? That is available. There may be many other ways, best ways to properly deal with black tax, but these are the ways that I think I can share with you, and it will be very beneficial to you. You can let me know what you think in the comment section, your whole idea about black tax. If I left anything that you think you can address, you can let me know. I wouldn't mind addressing it in the next video, in another video. But my final words to you, the sender of monies for black tax purposes, is before you send the money, ask yourself, under which category does this transaction fall? I bet that is going to be very helpful for you to know whether the money you are sending is useful or not. And to you, the receiver of the black tax proceeds, my message is that for every alert you receive, Be reminded that you are the direct beneficiary of all the benefits that the senders forfeited willingly or unwillingly, just so you are okay. So make it count. There is an adage they say that we rise by lifting others. But I guess you cannot lift those who are unwilling to be lifted. My name is Caleb. Thank you for being here. See you again.